hurdle. Good afternoon.
Thank you. I hope for some of you who are very morally, passionately committed to gay marriage is the right thing to do, I can lay out for you some of the things that concern your fellow citizens about this momentous step that you're being asked to do. I've spent 20 years in a marriage debate, much of it having nothing to do with gay people or gay marriage, but about our high rates of family fragmentation, divorce, unmarried childbearing, the number of children we have in this society who grow up without the love and care of their fathers as well as their mothers. I want to share with you both the professional or intellectual and the personal reasons why I think gay marriage really is a momentous change to the marriage system, why it's not the right thing to do. Let me start with the intellectual basis. The first thing about marriage, what is marriage? That's what you're being asked. Marriage is a virtually universal social institution. It exists in virtually every known human society, and it always has had something to do with bringing together a man and a woman into a sexual union, not some other kind of union, where the rights and responsibilities towards each other and any children that their sexual union makes are publicly and not merely privately and personally defined. And I think the question raised by gay marriage is why? Why in so many different places, completely disconnected, different religion, ecologies, economic systems, do human beings again and again come up with something that's recognizably this marriage idea? And I think the answer is that marriage as a universal human idea is rooted in three enduring truths about human beings. The first is the vast majority of us, for ill or good, are powerfully attracted to a sexual act that creates new life. Sex between men and women makes babies. The second truth is society needs babies. For individuals, reproducing is a choice. Managing this phenomenon of opposite sex attraction so that men and women come together to make and raise the next generation is not optional for the whole society. The third truth is that children need a father as well as a mother raising them. And to put this aside, our contemporary gender disputes over roles, what I mean is the most basic thing. When a child is born, there is bound to be a mother somewhere close by, all right? If we want fathers to be involved in raising their children and supporting the mothers of their children, there's a cultural process by which we teach the next generation of men and women that fathers have an obligation to children and their mothers. And the word for that is marriage. I could point you to, and probably other speakers will, to a mountain of social science evidence on family structures that have been well studied using nationally representative databases, which do not include same-sex couples. But I really want to say it's persuasive to me as that social science research is the voice of my own son. I came into this larger marriage debate as a result, right a couple of months after I was supposed to graduate from Yale. I had a baby outside of marriage. And so when I come to this debate about whether or not children need mothers and fathers, I hear as well the voice of my son, who's 2 years old, telling me, you know, where's my daddy? Where's the man as well as the woman who will love me? This is not a social norm to be discarded as bigotry. It's the core of what marriage is, and it's what you're being asked to denounce as if it were a species of racism.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Representative Lawler?
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Gallagher?
I'm sorry, and I should have explained. No, let me just say I should have explained that.
Yes, thank
for
you.
members of the public, we keep it to 3 minutes, but there is an opportunity for members to ask follow-up questions.
I'm delighted to answer any questions.
And I thank you for your testimony. Let me also say that if you do have cell phones, pretty much every cell phone these days has a silent mode or a vibrate mode, and I would appreciate it if you would take this opportunity to turn yours to silent or vibrate so that it doesn't disturb the testimony of people who have waited so long to testify. Representative Lawler.
Hi, Ms. Gallagher. How are you? Thanks for coming up here today.
Thank you.
Let me just ask you something. What do you think we should, I mean, we're the legislature, right? What do you think we should do in terms of same-sex relationships? Should we give them any acknowledgement at all? I understand the marriage thing is off the table as far as you're concerned, but what do you think is proper recognition for these relationships?
You know, as I said, I'm a person who's involved in the marriage debate. So I'm pretty much content. I mean, Connecticut has civil unions. As far as we're concerned, that's done. I don't debate against civil unions. I don't advocate for them. I think that, you know, if you're concerned about equality of civil rights and benefits, I certainly think that you should do them through civil unions rather than through marriages. But I guess what's the hard part is that I'm not an all-purpose, I mean, I don't think that gay people are sitting around waiting for me to come up with a 10-point legislative plan for them. This gay marriage thing came on the table, and as somebody who cares a lot about marriage, I felt it was necessary for me to enter this debate. That's the one that's what I really care about. So I try to stick to what I know about and what I care about.
No, I got you. And see, the thing we're grappling with here today is, I mean, we already have, essentially, we have same-sex marriage in Connecticut. We just call it civil unions. I mean, as many people pointed out, if you just looked at the state laws, the rules are identical, right? And I'm trying to sort of balance that fact against what you're asserting, and you've given a lot of reasons for your opinion, and of course we respect those, but why wouldn't all of that also apply to us doing the exact same thing and just calling it civil unions, which we've done? How does that, in your mind, how is that different in calling
I spend a lot of time talking to people who oppose gay marriage, who make the argument that civil unions are just marriage by another name, and I don't actually agree with that. I think that it's an attempt to provide a set of civil benefits for couples who don't want to marry, as marriage has been understood, but you want to solve some practical problems for those couples. So I see that as you know, maybe a good idea or a bad idea, but it's different from what you're being asked to do with same-sex marriage. There's two big ideas here. Okay, you're being asked to endorse one of these two ideas, and you hear from those who are advocating for gay marriage the first idea really strongly. There is no relevant difference between same-sex and opposite-sex couples. And it's wrong. Only bigots think otherwise, right? There's nothing about marriage that same-sex couples don't fit. The other idea, which I would call the marriage idea, certainly the classic cross-cultural historic understanding of marriage, is that there's something special about unions of husbands and wives that justifies the unique status in law and society, right? If you pick that first idea, what is it about the second idea that has to go? The things that really are different about opposite-sex couples, that only men and women can come together and create the next generation and attach that child to his own mother and father. This has to either be unimportant in itself or not related to marriage in the state of Connecticut anymore. And when we do this, because as every speaker advocating for gay marriage has done so, because the opposite idea is irrational bigotry, this is what really gets me, Representative. If you're going to, that's a really big, important idea. If you're going to launch that idea and legislate it, you have to take responsibility for it. You know, what will this mean to those of us who see marriage as the union of husband and wife? Well, ask yourself, how do we treat bigots who oppose interracial marriage in the state of Connecticut? Right? We don't throw you in jail if you're a bigot, right? You can exist. But there's a whole set of legal consequences when this idea of marriage is denounced or viewed in law as a species of bigotry. And it's everything from professional licenses, school accreditations, ultimately the tax-exempt status of charitable organizations. Those of you who think that people like me, who think marriage is the union of husband and wife, are like bigots who opposed interracial marriage, are saying launching a really big, important idea, and it's going to change marriage, and it's going to affect large number of citizens in the state of Connecticut, in my view.
Well, I tell you what, let's take the bigotry topic and just put it aside for 1 second, because I like to focus in on the distinction
Sure.
between civil unions and marriage. And so, because the legal status, right, in terms of
The structure of legal benefits is the same.
it's
yes.
identical, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're saying there's something magic just in the word, not in the stat.
I can explain. What I'm saying is that marriage was not created by the Connecticut legislature. Marriage as a legal status is.
Right.
But, you know, what marriage is older than the state of Connecticut. Okay, it's older than the U.S. Constitution, as one Supreme Court decision said. And, you know, when you are creating a new, what the legislature is proposing to do, you know, is to say that this older understanding of marriage is wrong and discriminatory. Okay? So, yes, I agree with advocates for gay marriage that the word marriage matters, right? Because culture consists of ideas and images and words and pictures, right? And so for you here in the legislature to say the conjugal vision of marriage, our whole marriage tradition, is a species of bigotry and it needs to be changed in the name of equality, is a very powerful new idea to launch, and I think it will have powerful consequences.
Okay, then let's go to the bigotry topic, because I think it's
I
interesting.
am much less concerned, I just want to say, I'm much less concerned about giving benefits to gay people. I mean, it's not a hill I want to die on.
Well, because, you know, 2 years ago, we went through a big debate about that, and although it did pass overwhelmingly in the legislature, there were certainly people who felt very, very strongly
Yes.
that doing this would basically give the official sanction to same-sex relationships. And that's kind of what their argument was. And so
What's the
on
difference?
on the topic of bigotry, you know, you know, I haven't talked to every advocate for same-sex marriage, but I've certainly talked to a lot of them. And when the bigotry topic comes up, I don't think it's that they're talking about a bigotry that is based upon denying people the right to marry. I think it's a bigotry that's about their views on homosexuality. Now, it sounds that you don't share that view, although I'm not sure. But, you know, there are many people who believe that homosexuality itself is not just immoral, but intrinsically disordered and intrinsically evil and objectively disordered, right? And so I think people, when they talk about bigotry in this discussion, are talking about that point of view, not whether or not, because there's certainly people who voted for for the civil union thing, but aren't comfortable with same-sex marriage. And those people expressed their views in the debate 2 years ago, and they were very clear. You know, I remember one state senator said that in helping to make up his mind, he tried to get a sense of, is this a choice or are you born that way? And he said he came around to feeling that you're born that way. And so if you really are born that way, in his view, as he stated it in the debate, was why should you not have equal rights? And so I think, but my guess is that same state senator probably doesn't support same-sex marriage, but he could support civil unions. But when people talked about the bigotry, I think they're talking about people's views on homosexuality, not on whether or not gays should be married, but just whether gays should be officially sanctioned. So what do you think about that?
Well, I'll just say that today in this chamber, I heard very strong arguments that people who oppose gay marriage are like anti-Semites, like people who oppose interracial marriage, like people who oppose equal rights for women. I don't hear, I mean, I think that the core case for calling it marriage equality is, in fact, an argument about marriage. Now, there's an overlapping argument about homosexuality. And, you know, I would say that our culture wars on that issue would be a lot less if we weren't being driven by the race analogy in conferring rights on gay and lesbian citizens. But that's like a whole another can of worms, which my opinion is not worth more than any other person. But the argument that is being made before the Connecticut Supreme Court and before the legislature here today is an argument that seeing anything distinctive about unions of husbands and wives is either irrational or based in malice towards gay people. That's the argument on the table. So I take that very seriously. I've learned in 25 years of public life that when you frame a public issue and you get the government and the law to endorse one side in this moral dispute, that the government has a lot of power. So, I mean, the most important thing to me here is to say it's not a slippery slope. It's not even a consequences, as important as they are. It's an argument about justice. I don't believe marriage is discriminatory. I believe it has its own unique dignity and purpose rooted in real and enduring human realities. It's not discrimination any more than Social Security is age discrimination. And that's the debate that I think it's important for our society and for marriage to win.
Well, so we could help us understand your views then.
Yeah.
Do you think homosexuality is immoral?
I'm a Roman Catholic, and I don't think homosexuality as a noun is immoral, but if my best friend came up to me and said, do you think you should engage in gay sex, I would say no. But if I'm not asked, I don't usually bring it up.
Okay, but you'd say no because presumably you're not gay, right?
I don't
that's
know.
why
I
you
don't know
wouldn't-
what I would say if I were gay. That would be a different
Right, but I
person.
mean,
I could say, by the way, I know gay people who think gay sex is wrong. It's not impossible. It's not common. But
I know
it
straight
is
people
possible.
think straight sex is wrong, though.
Yeah, I know. I think
Yeah.
a lot of straight sex is wrong, but nobody seems to listen to me. So I try to focus on not my personal views on sexual morality, but on the public purpose of marriage as a social institution.
Oh, I understand that, but you see, we're being asked to start thinking about this fundamental question about our law says that we will treat these
That
relationships
there's something different
identical.
about unions of husband and wife. That's what the law says.
It says two things. It says we'll treat them identically, but we will call it something else.
That's right.
That's what the law says in Connecticut.
Right,
okay?
because there's something different about unions of husbands and wives.
Right. And so we're trying to figure out what's the difference. If the law says they're identical and the names are different, what's the difference? And so
Well, the difference is that people, because gay people would find it hard to marry as we understand it, this is how I understand it. The legislature decided to offer a benefit structure to help these people because they're not likely to be in opposite-sex marriages. And there's a small population group. It's hard for them to marry. So I don't believe you can buy the right to discriminate. So I don't think you can, with civil unions, buy the right to keep marriage is discriminatory. But if you believe, as I do, that marriage is not discriminatory, you might also believe that just as we do things for single mothers and we do things for people in other family forms, we might want to do things for our gay and lesbian fellow citizens. It's not, so there's, to me, there's no inherent contradiction between, and I know that the plaintiffs right now are in court arguing that because you pass civil unions that our marriage laws are an irrational violation of equal protection. But I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's what you did in passing a civil union law, and I think it would be very bad for the country for people to feel that if you pass a civil union law, it means inevitably that there's nothing, there's no reason for keeping marriage as a distinct status.
And the last question I want to ask you, in your opening statement, and I tried to jot down essentially what you said,
Sure.
but it sounded like what you said, that doing this would undermine the statement that you said marriage, that gay marriage or gay relationships were not an option for the whole society, something like that. Did you mean to say that
Yes, I did.
that our official capacity, our official position should be that that should not be an option, gay relationships?
Now, what I think that I said pretty clearly is that marriage is rooted in the idea that we need to get men and women together to make and raise the next children, because children need a father as well as a mother. And that what gay marriage does is redefines this whole set of social norms as a form of bigotry akin to those who opposed interracial marriage. And that, so what I'm focused on is not actually anything about gay people and their relationships. I'm focused on defining the historic cross-cultural special mission of marriage as a form of bigotry, which is what I think that, I just think if you're going to make this argument over and over again, that you ought to own up to the responsibility, and not you personally, but when people do, for what a big new idea this is and what kinds of consequences this is going to have for at least those of us who remain committed to this older conjugal vision of marriage as a union of husband and wife. You can't say it's like racism and then say, well, why can you be, this is not going to affect anyone but a couple of nice gay couples who want some respect.
So now I think I understand what you said by that. So I guess what I want to ask you then,
Sure.
just to clarify, because we get to set public policy
Sure.
in the General Assembly with the concurrence of the governor, right?
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yeah.
And so are you saying that we should have a public policy that encourages gay people to get into marriages with opposite sex persons?
No. I'm not saying, I didn't say anything like that, and I guess I'm confused. I'm saying that marriage is about this thing. Now, there are always going to be people who don't marry, who don't want to marry, who aren't suited for marry, and you may want to do other things for them and their family forms. But if we move to gay marriage as a civil right, we will be saying that there is no social institution based on the idea that we need to get men and women together to make and raise their children together, and that this idea is itself a form of discrimination against gay people.
But see, that's
It's odd. I mean, I haven't said anything about gay people. I've only said that this is an important social norm for the vast bulk of the majority.
I got you, but I don't understand. You're arguing that this social norm is designed to get people together, right? To form marriages and have children, right? And it's understandable why that would be an important public policy. But does that mean to say that it's meant to encourage gay people to do that? Because
No,
like
it
you're either
isn't.
gay or you're straight, and
No, it isn't. No, it isn't meant to do that at all. We have a failure here to communicate. Let me pause for a minute and see where if I can locate it so we can achieve disagreement. It's hard. It's hard. It's a lot of work to achieve disagreement, and I take
Okay.
it seriously. The portion of the gay marriage argument, I mean, I guess part of the difference between, I gather, you and I, although I'm not trying to speak for you, is that at least some people think that with gay marriage, you're simply going to be adding a few more people into the existing marriage system and nothing else will change. At the same time, these people are making the argument that there is no relevant difference between same-sex and opposite-sex couples that explains why anyone would care about whether we kept the meaning of the word marriage. The word husband right now means a man in a certain kind of relationship with a woman, right? You're proposing to use the law to change that reality. If you changing it in the law won't matter unless you use the law to change the culture, which is what's going to happen. I mean, public schools will be teaching this new official vision of marriage, and they will be teaching it as a great civil rights triumph over this older, bigoted idea of marriage, right? And the law, I mean, you adopt this position in the law, and the law has a lot of power. for changing the way people think about marriage. And I guess the way to say it is that I'm not trying to get gay people to do anything or not do anything, right? It's really not been my focus. I do think that describing this special mission of marriage as a form of discrimination, rooted in the idea that there's an equality argument here, that, you know, treating different things differently is not a violation of equal protection. It's not discrimination. So where do we go if we have to say these two things are exactly the same, and anyone who thinks otherwise is motivated by hatred, right? Bigotry, animus, irrationality. It's a big new idea you're launching about marriage. That's the point I want to really call attention to.
Well, okay, thanks.
Thank you very